Sarah. How's the last week been for you?
Well, I've had a lot of homework and I feel like I'm drowning in that a little bit. I have this professor who's very hard and I'm keeping up, but it's really hard to do that. And so, with that stress and then just learning about different theories, and I'm really stressed about trying to figure out which one fits me.
What stresses you out about it?
Well, I feel like I need to know it really well if I'm going to choose one. And my professor says that we can't be eclectic. And so, there's things about all the theories that I like. And so I feel like I really am going to have to get to know them. And I don't quite totally know them. I still have to research and try it out. But then I'm afraid to try it out with clients because if it's not the right one, I'm afraid I'm going to mess someone up, like screw up their life.
Mm. It sounds like you're putting a lot of responsibility on yourself.
Yeah, it seems like being a counselor is a lot of pressure and you need to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. What scares you the most about that?
Um, I just don't want people to leave feeling like I didn't help them or while I'm doing my practicum, um, to have people give my supervisor feedback like I'm not very good at what I'm doing, and that'd be really crushing because I really care about this.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I never want someone to leave and feel like I told them something that was totally wrong or something, and then they go do it and it messes up everything.
Mm. It sounds like you're worried about feedback a little bit with your professor, but then also just with the client there, that you want to do the best. And that, do you think maybe you're having a little bit of black and white thinking of like one extreme or the other, kind of like it's all good or it's all bad? Um,
Mm.
not really seeing in between where there can be a gray area, like you could help somebody and not be perfect, but you still helped somebody, you still listened and validated them. Does
Mm-hmm.
that sound like maybe what you're kind of struggling with?
Yeah, maybe. I think, yeah, it seems like I'm either going to be a really good therapist or I'm really going to mess people up. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I don't know the theory well enough, it just feels like, yeah, it'll be either or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and that's what we call a cognitive distortion, because it's a thought that you're having about something and it's a very real thought, but it is kind of has a filter on it to where you're only seeing it one way. So if you're seeing it one extreme or the other, that's where the stress comes up. Because if you saw it as, hey, I'm still learning, I'm getting used to this, like I don't know this theory perfectly, but that doesn't um, mean that I can't try it out or I can't be a therapist. So there's a lot of kind of gray in the middle of the black and white or
Mm-hmm.
middle ground, that if your thoughts were thinking about that, that would then kind of take the stress off of you of having to be perfect or, seeing one extreme or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to be aware of that cognitive distortion, because then you can catch yourself and then you can stop those automatic thoughts that you're having and then replace that with a healthier um, thought, and then use some coping skills like maybe deep breathing or some mindfulness to really like center yourself and help yourself kind of um, focus on what the important part is. Because really the important part is that you'd be sitting in front of somebody and you care about them and you're wanting to be there, be in their corner, validate them, help them, go through a really rough spot. It doesn't matter if you don't know the theory perfectly, or you don't know all the right things to say. It just matters that you're there showing up. So you're being kind of hard on yourself with those black and white thoughts of
Mm-hmm.
one extreme or the other.
Well, yes, I do know that I need to not stress as much, and that I know that like going into something like this, like when you go through a lot of schooling and money and time and, you know, it just feels like you have to do it well in order, I mean, because you've worked so hard. And um, I think I'm just going to get in this space with clients where, like, what if I don't know what to say?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and all those are very valid things. Like there is a huge time commitment and money commitment, and it takes a lot of dedication. Like that's very valid. But then what you do with that reality and those thoughts is what causes the stress or doesn't cause the stress. Because if you have the commitment to being a therapist no matter what, and you're open to learning and growing and, constantly striving to be a better therapist, that's something that you can do your first day or your 10th year. So it's, still having that balance of, yeah, I put a lot into this of time and money and dedication, but that doesn't mean that I have to be perfect at it. I don't have to know all the right things to say, because you won't. Like oftentimes that happens, but that doesn't mean you're not helping the person and that you're not doing a good job, you know.
Well, yes, I hope I can be. I think I need to think through that and try to be not as hard on myself, like you were saying. And I guess like we don't always have all the answers, right? I mean, we're human.
Right. And what I like to help people teach clients with is when you start feeling stressed. So if you feel it like in your shoulders or your heart starts racing or you get butterflies in your stomach, stop and ask yourself, what was I just thinking? Because more times than not, you just had a cognitive distortion. You had a thought that went through your head that said, I have to be perfect at this, or if I fail this presentation, I can't be a therapist. There's some thought that went through your head, and our bodies, signal to us that we're stressed. And so that can be a good way to tip us off that we're having a cognitive distortion, or we're not having a balanced thought or a healthy thought about something. And so if you feel your muscles tightening before exam or presentation, ask yourself, what was I just thinking about that? Am I thinking I have to be perfect? Am I thinking that, I won't be a successful therapist or a successful, student in this class if I am not acing this, and so kind of use your body as a guide, and you want to stay in tune with yourself, with your body, physical body and your mind of what you're thinking,
That's something I can use and then use with clients.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And you can really use your struggle with clients, because you don't have to know everything that they've gone through or have experienced everything they've gone through. You know what it's like to struggle or to worry or to have fears. And that is a common denominator for all of us, and that's really what you can work out of when you're sitting across a client. If they're worried about something and you've been worried about things, you can have that connection, and may or may not say that connection, but at least you're human and they're human. So a lot of what we go through, you can use as a tool for yourself as a therapist.
So how about, like, I'm really nervous about hearing people's problems and like different issues that or whatever they're going through, and then like taking it home and not, just getting too emotional over what I heard. And how do I work through that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for every person it's different how you cope with it, but kind of viewing it like like your hands, are cupped and they're like this for the person, where you're holding their problems and their, their emotional stress in your hand, you're helping to hold it there for them. It doesn't mean you have to take it on and kind of like put it in your backpack that you're wearing and take it home with you, because you being stressed does not help them work through their issue. But if you're able to hold it for them in the session, that's very validating for somebody, just to know that there's some other human being that's a safe, trusted person that's hearing what I'm saying, and they're not judging me. They're not having, they're not recoiling. They're not having a negative reaction to what I'm saying. But they're there with me. They're sitting with me in the room, or through video, so kind of having that metaphor, viewing it that way can really help. And then you leave it there, at the office. You don't have to bring it home, because bringing it home doesn't help anything, doesn't help the client. So just practicing that, it will get easier as time goes on. And there will be things that really trigger you or cause countertransference. And that's what you will want to talk to your supervisor about, or you'll want to get your own individual therapy and work through that, because there will be certain hot topics that bother us. And that's okay. We just have to be aware of that and know to work on it. So, it takes practice and time for learning all of that.
Yeah, I guess I keep thinking that I should be able to counsel anybody, and like if there's an issue that they're dealing with, like, for example, if someone was a registered sex offender or struggled with being transgender or something, I feel like I'm supposed to know all the answers and how to help them. But what you're just saying kind of makes me feel a little less stressed about, like, I can develop a specialty someday. There are things that I am gonna get triggered by, and I'm not gonna have all the answers. So, like, if I do get triggered, I can talk to my supervisor if I want.
Yeah, somebody once said, a therapist said, they view it as leaving, like they drop their backpack of stress at the door so that they're able to come in clear-headed with the client. But then when they leave the stress of the client in the office, and pick their backpack of their own life stress back up when they leave. So different metaphors or different practices can help. Some therapists change out of their clothes when they get home, so it's not the same thing that they wore while they were doing therapy. Or, they shower or something, so that there's a distinct physical change to help them emotionally. So, dealing with the stress of listening to people's, past and trauma and day-to-day stress definitely takes a toll. So you have to have a plan, and again, check in with yourself and your body and your mind of what you're thinking and feeling, so that you can work on that and not, not be so overwhelmed with it that you can't function.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I'm going to have you say who you are, what you do, and how you got some experience, if you want, where you went to school, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. I'm Sarah Sanders. I live in Chico, California, and have a private practice here in Chico. I got licensed last February. So I've been licensed for a little bit over a year, and then have been doing therapy since grad school, which was about 6 years ago, and went to Simpson University. I almost said college, Simpson University in Reading, and got my experience up there, and then moved to Chico about 3 years ago, and love having my own practice here in Chico.
Awesome. And you are a CBT therapist.
Yeah, I do CBT and mindfulness, and emotion focused, and attachment most.